On today's episode of The Crow's Nest, we are joined here in the nest once again with the illustrious one himself, Bobby A., also known by his God-given name, Robert Avery. On today's episode, we will be talking about a bunch of stuff. We love to engage in that art form called conversational parkour. But among other things, we will be discussing Ancient Aliens, which you will soon find out is an obsession of Robert Avery, something that goes deep down into his bones. And perhaps, maybe there's a conspiracy churning. Maybe he's been sent to us by the collective that is Ancient Aliens. But regardless, I'll be honest, after listening to this conversation a second and third time, I'm intrigued by the show. And I think at some point I will have to do a deep dive. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And get ready, buckle up, because this one's going to be an interesting ride. What's going on? What's on your mind?
It's excellent. So glad to be here again, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
But let's just start off with this jumping point, and I think we're in sync enough that we'll just flow from this one.
Sounds good.
It's reached red alert status. If we were in Star Trek, Picard would be calling for red alert right now.
Red alert.
Yeah, and de Blasio is pretty much saying there will be a shutdown in New York City at some point, which Chris called weeks ago. And what do you think about that? What do you think is going to happen if New York City is just effectively shut down?
So it's funny because I sent that message yesterday, and I got some hate from my man with the plan.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of hate.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of hate recently because I've said this, that in my estimation, Wednesday schools will be closed. It's Tuesday schools are closed, ahead of schedule. And I guess that by this coming weekend, so today is the 17th, St. Patty's Day. You got me.
Just gonna say that.
Yeah. So I would say by this coming weekend, I think we're going to be on a little temporary lockdown. I'm not saying it's going to be a horrible thing, but I think we'll be on lockdown.
So now that you're basically the coronavirus Nostradamus over here.
Yes.
So what is going to shut down? What is this shutdown going to look like, in your opinion?
So, I don't know. We are no experts. I am no expert. I could just see them shutting down the subways, definitely, and just try to kind of minimize movement as much as possible. And from what I understand, the places who have minimized movement to the best of their abilities, you have seen a dip in the virus. So I could see that happening. New York's a crazy thing. One little birdie has told me, and this I think is pretty true, that the moment you hear that the NASDAQ is closing, the stock exchange, then it's like the next step will be that they'll lock things down.
Usually that's a good call, because the NASDAQ is actually, people think it's just a financial thing, but it's actually a good indication of almost anything political, like geopolitical, any kind of basically citywide behavior can be tracked via Wall Street.
Yeah, so one of my friends said this, and you have to fact check me on this one, but pretty much it was that it's about the New York Stock Exchange, and it pretty much he was saying that, let me see if I can find the text. So I have my one contact, my one person living up in the Poconos. He's like the sentinel
over here. You got a birdie.
The sentinel, the man on the lone tower, kind of like chiming in and sending out the birds ahead of schedule. So he said to me, and I thought this was pretty interesting, he was like, the New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street, makes up 80% of New York City's or New York State's tax. So they make so much money off the New York Stock Exchange that the idea of closing it, even for a moment, is like many people's worst nightmare. So pretty much what my friend was saying is that when that closes, or when there's even talk of that closing, then after that, it's like, all right, might as well close everything down, because nothing really affects the inner workings of New York State at like that.
Yeah, it's the stock exchange is a great barometer of just New York State's behavior in general. And for any fan of the series The Wire, which is one of my top choices, there's a character named Lester Freeman, and he's kind of like, he's not like the hard-nosed detective, like the no-nonsense, skull-busting. He's not that. He's usually like the desk guy, and people kind of look down upon him. But he goes, you want to find all the answers? You follow the money.
Oh, yeah,
and
man.
that's usually where you find all the answers. And this is a perfect example of it.
Correct. It's like you follow the money. It's like at the end of the day, it's dollars and cents. And I mean, what's crazy, and we talked about it last time, it's just like, and I keep thinking about it, and it's so funny to me because I just don't feel like anyone's talking about it. Obviously, people are,
Yeah.
but it's just like the trickle effect and like the riptide and the ripple of what this is going to do to things. Just like, it's kind of crazy. Just like all of these businesses, all of these things. Like, I saw an article or a headline, and it was like 100,000 people unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's insane. Like, it really is insane in like how that's going to affect people. It's like, how long, like how many months or years will it take you to kind of bounce back?
I think it's going to take a long time, and I think that touches on a very sensitive topic. I think at least me personally, and I know, I don't mean to speak for everyone, but I know I can speak for some part of the population. We're not concerned with catching the virus. That's not the number one concern. I'm not concerned with getting sick. I actually just went to the doctor. I've been to 2 doctors today. Like, I'm pretty good. Got all checked out. But not to say that I'm good, because like there's delayed symptoms, but
Sure.
knock on wood. I hope you can hear that.
Yeah.
But
Imagine the sound of
correct.
knocking wood.
I just knocked on the wood floor. But anyway, so what concerns me the most is, as you said, is I call it the fallout. It's like the impact of what all these shutdowns and this like nationwide. Basically, you can call it hysteria right now, because it is. Everyone's panicking. Not everyone, but majority. This is what's going to define this moment in history. How this affects the financial industry, the markets, unemployment, the labor force, decisions, politics. It's like an all-reaching arm. This jurisdiction is global for this virus. So it's like trade is going to be affected by this, like foreign policy, all of it. And that's going to be the literally the definitive moment for this kind of pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I heard was like they're using the word it's a global recession.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's pretty crazy. It's like the world, in a big way, is just going to go, like the pause button is going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how often does that really happen? It's kind of a weird thing.
I can't remember the last time it happened.
Yeah, so
I
it's
don't think it has. Not in our lifetime, definitely.
No, I mean, there's been lots of devastating things in our lifetime, but nothing that has kind of forced people to put their life on hold.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like even 9/11. I mean, we were alive during 9/11.
Absolutely.
You were in New York?
I saw the towers fall. I saw the second tower fall from the top of my roof in the Bronx. Saw it fall.
Right? And what's crazy, though, think about that, is that it didn't take the city to get too long to get back to some semblance of normalcy. Like, it was still crazy, but, like, the economy didn't go belly up. People still worked. Like, it was more of it was the emotional aspect of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, it's a devastating tragedy, but, like, life went on. Whereas this is like, whew, life is going on pause.
Yeah. And also, like, I'm obviously not to belittle 9/11, but it didn't have the global reach. Like, Africa didn't care about 9/11. It didn't affect Africa. It affected the Middle East, it affected Europe, and it affected the United States for the most part. For the most part, there were small trickle effects in other places, but this thing is on every single continent. and it's the number one news story in every country in the world. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I've never seen anything like this. And I don't know, man. Like, my mind goes to, like, should we be scared? Should we get scared? Or do we use this as a learning point? I think you could do a little of both. Like, you should be a little frightened, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a hump. There's let's say not frightened per se. I mean, if you're prepared, then there's less to fear, I think, because you're like, all right, like I prepared for situation A, situation B. There's always the things I can't prepare for, but I'm somewhat prepared. But I do like what you said in the sense of like it is I mean, the way I look at it is like I think we're a little, especially younger people, we're a little bit arrogant in the fact that we think nothing bad is going to ever happen. And I think it's kind of like this is one of the situations where it's like, all right, like you don't know that much stuff. Like here's a situation that you're completely powerless in, and I don't know. It's like it reminds you just of how fluid life is.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time a little bit, like how things can just change on a dime, how everything, it's basically, we take it for granted. Most of humanity is jaded. It's this, our lives, our structure, like the status quo is on a knife edge. And it only takes one monkey wrench to disrupt everything. And in this instance, it's a pandemic. In the other instance, it was a terrible tragedy, an attack. So, in this, I mean, it's sad to say, but what does that actually say about the structure of humanity? Are we too fragile, or are we just too self-involved? That's the question I propose. I mean, it could be a little of both. In my opinion, it's a little of both, but we are fragile, but we also do it to ourselves a little bit because we kind of get a little self-involved, but that's the nature of humans. We're looking out, first and foremost, looking out for your own self, your own survival. All right. And with that comes the ego. It's a little tied in with that, but it's a little more of a different part of it. But humans are egotistical by nature.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, 100%. Yeah. And I think also it's true of like when you live like it's kind of I was thinking about this the other day, is like a situation like this is that, for a lot of people, it's like I find it very fascinating that people complain about the government. Yet in a situation like this, the only news they truly trust is when like the government finally says something.
Right.
So it's like, in one hand, you don't like it and you don't trust it, but in another hand, the only data points you will like change your life around are when like the government finally says like we're gonna do X or we're gonna do Y. Like that message I sent out the other day, it was like, that's just like, that's fake, or that's this or that's that, and then a day later they're pretty much talking about the same thing. Now it might not be exactly the same, but for me, I'm like, all right, like there's so many mechanisms happening behind the scenes. It's like, even if the story is like 80% correct and it's not 100% correct, it's like anything. Let's go back to Lord Varys, man. You get the whispers. The whispers are never 100% correct.
They're never. Yeah.
But if they're 80-90% correct, it's enough data to begin to
That's a good point.
Work with.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like, just to draw an analogy, it's like political rumors, it's like financial rumors, it's like athletic sports rumors. These rumors are never 100% true.
Correct.
Like, you hear about, like, this company's going to buy that company, this team is going to trade this player for this exact. It never works out exactly the way the rumor is, but then a day later you hear like Apple's thinking about buying Disney, and then 2 days later Apple buys Disney. So it's like it's never the exact terms. You're right. You're kind of right about that. So
yeah, it's just kind of funny. It's like if you're always it's like anything else. There's always going to be some degree of risk. It's like buying stock. Let's say it's like, well, if you buy stock when everyone else buys stock, then it doesn't matter. It's of no value, right? It's like if you wait till the news comes out and then you buy it. So what do? You try to read the signs, study the bones, study the entrails, and try to get a little bit ahead of everyone else. And hey, you might win, you might lose, but it's you take a chance. And I think that's kind of true when it comes to it's a life. It's if you wait for 100% certainty, then usually you're going to be
conservative.
Yeah. Well, you're with the crowd. I mean, think about if let's just say, I mean, it might not happen, but let's just say that, today's Tuesday, let's say Thursday. All right, this weekend's no moving around, right? Like stay home, this and that closes. You're going to get, let's say, Friday, everyone rushing around trying to get those last things. When if they had kind of taken a little bit of a, well, this might happen. Let me read the signs. Let me get a little ahead of this. Then there's no frenzy. You kind of prepare. You prepare for the worst case, even if that worst case never comes to pass.
Yeah, that's very true. It's like it's always, like you said before, it's always better to be prepared than to be scrambling and rushing at the end. Like what's really the cause of the anxiety? Having to gobble up all the last supplies. When if you were prudent, you would have had some kind of foresight, read between the lines, know that like, hey, keep going. I think that's better. Even
Just had to change up the mic a little bit.
Yeah, no worries, guys.
Keep going.
I had the mesh thing in front of me. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Bear with us.
This is a station ground. This is This is a disaster.
Yeah, I remember my first podcast. I'm new to this, so just bear with us, guys. But where was I? So
the hair's curling, the Kramer's coming out.
It's coming up. So I'm under like a very, very bad procrastinator, and I'll admit that. And however, at this time, I can proudly say I'm fully supplied. I'm stocked. Don't really need to hit the grocery market for a good 4 to 5 weeks. I'm good for a little while. And it's not thanks to me. It's thanks to a couple of my friends who was like, but then I did more digging, which what I'm good at, doing research. And I started reading like a madman. And I was like, and I even told my friends who shall remain unnamed. I told them I listened to a podcast sent to me by another friend of ours, who recently just left New York. And this is going to give it away, but I listened to the podcast. She's going to know who she is now. And that podcast was it was 2 scientists and one like medical, he was a doctor, but he was like he was more of like a scientist and like a general practitioner doctor. So it was just a conversation of scientists. And once I listened to that podcast, the first thing I did was every day I started furiously washing my hands. And I immediately went to the laundromat and cleaned everything in my room. Because I knew, I was like, this is not a game anymore. And I looked, because the way they articulated, they were like, the way this can travel, it means this, it's different from this. And they broke it down so well in layman's terms that it sufficiently lit the fire under me. And I was like, action is required right now. I need to get my affairs in order.
The one thing is, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't know Bobby A. Bobby A is a deep researcher. He is someone that, if he becomes interested in the subject, he becomes then consumed by that subject. So much so that he will know more about that than an expert.
Right.
So when he delves deep, he really delves.
Yeah, that's right. Also, we forgot to introduce ourselves in the beginning. This is Chris Corvo. I'm Robert Avery. So he's like, you're gonna be like, who's this Bobby A guy? He sounds like a rapper, but
He's
no.
Bobby A,
So
the living legend,
yeah,
the
thank you.
infamous
Oh, yeah.
one, the
That's
one
right.
with many names,
That's
but we
right.
only need to know him by
The
one.
legendary
Bobby A.
That's correct. So I listened to that podcast, and then I shared with my two other friends, and I was like, listen, I usually don't get alarmed about this. I'm usually highly skeptical about things like this. But I was like, I think it's time to start worrying.
Who did you share it with?
My two roommates.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And they know who they are. So I was like, I literally shared this with them weeks ago. It has to be like 5 weeks ago.
How did they respond to it?
It's like how I would respond to it, like with a tinge of skepticism and like, but to their point, they may raise a good point. It's like, this wouldn't be an issue if everyone just was clean, which you should always be. Just be clean. And they were right about that. They were like, oh, I always wash your hands. You should always be washing your hands. It shouldn't take a global pandemic for you to start washing your hands regularly. You should have always been doing that.
True. Yeah, but the thing with this is, it's airborne. It's right. It's like New York is a very interesting and unique place in that respect. And it's like, you think about the places where this is hitting the hardest. It's usually in like these very densely populated areas. Like New York City is like, every aspect of your life is done for the most part with lots of people around. Like your commute day, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, lots of people.
Oh, the subway,
job,
forget about it.
Everywhere you go. It's like, it's funny today, so the gyms are closed here. I go to the park around the corner, and I get there, and there's like maybe 2 or 3 people doing like pull-ups and different things. Everyone's trying to get in their workouts, even though the gyms are closed. And I'm there, I'm doing some stuff, and then a 4th person comes, a 5th person comes, a 6th person comes, a 7th person comes. Eventually, it's like 10 people, and you're like back to the gym. It's like, all right, like I might as well leave because,
right.
Again, this has defeated the whole purpose. Because in New York, it's like there's no secret. Everything is done with everyone around.
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
That's the danger.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to be alone in New York City. Anytime you could be 24/7 in the street, there's always going to be someone else in the street with you. That's just the reality of what it is in New York, unfortunately.
I mean, New York is one of the funniest places in the sense that, like, it's the only place I think I've been to where someone will, if someone's got to cry, they'll cry, and they don't care who's around them. Like, that's the craziest thing. You'll be on a subway, and you'll see a woman just crying.
I've seen it, yeah.
And it's like, she don't care that anyone's around her. It's like, all right, I got to do this, and I got to do it right now. So
yeah, but you also see people like screaming and hollering. It doesn't matter, like, but the crazy thing about New York is people will see the woman crying. They'll see the guy yelling his head off. They'll see insane things, and they'll just be like, I'm just gonna get off at my stop.
You turn your head. You don't even make eye contact.
Doesn't even faze most New Yorkers. And it's a beauty kind of thing, but it's also like in other places that I've been to, like smaller towns, like I was like, especially in like Pennsylvania, Connecticut. I was in Rhode Island recently. Like, people are aware of not only your feelings, but your behavior. Whereas in New York, people, they're nosy, but only if it basically feeds them. So essentially, it's like, I'm only going to be nosy in New York if I see people lining up for something. I'm going to be like, hey, why are you lining up? What's going on here? Whereas in a small town in Rhode Island, they're watching you, but not in a selfish reason. They're watching you because to be like, oh, it's another person. Good morning. How are you? They notice you. They're aware that you're there. Whereas in New York, if you're not benefiting them in any way, they're just gonna blow right by you. Why do you think all those people in the subway, they're trying to solicit, like, for whatever cause, and you just see people just firing by them? And one time I did that, and I said, I'm sorry, I gotta catch my train. And the woman literally turned around and told me, you're not sorry. I know you're not. And she was right, though. She was, I hate that she said that to me, but she was right.
Those people are honestly like, I find street, what do they call it? Street canvassers.
Canvas.
They
yeah.
are my, if I have to say I hate something, I hate that. As an occupation, as a job, I kind of find it the lowliest of jobs. Because here you are, going to make me feel guilty
That's
for
what
not
you did.
talking
Yeah.
to you when I don't have to talk to you. I'm going to work. There's no need for me to talk to you.
Or
You're
you're
trying to
going
sell
home.
me
I just
something.
worked all day and I want to go home.
Yeah, it's like you're going to try to make me feel guilty for
Yeah.
something. I'm like, no.
That's
No.
not how it works.
What
yeah.
I usually do nowadays is like, I'll say, I'll talk to you, but you got to walk. Because they
Right.
never will walk. They can't walk. So I'll be like, all right, if
I
you
like
want
that,
to walk with me in
actually.
that direction, I'll listen to you.
Yeah,
They ain't
yeah.
going to follow you.
They're not gonna follow you.
No
That's
way.
a good. That's a good. I
No
like
way.
that. I might take that.
I
Feel
remember Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
What he did, and that was cracked me up, was like he would stare at them deep in the eyes. And I asked him once, I was like, "Why are you doing that?" He's like, "If you stare at someone in the eyes, they're not gonna come talk to you." So literally, like if you're like, let's say they're ahead of you and you're
Right.
approaching them, he will just make hard eye contact and just keep looking at them unwaveringly until he just eventually just passes them.
Right.
And they never say anything.
They never
It's
stop him.
hilarious.
You know what I'm gonna call that? He's giving off the serial killer vibe.
Correct. They're like, nah, man, something's wrong with this dude.
He'd be like,
We're
I
gonna
don't
let
want
this
to.
one go.
I ain't tangling with this guy, so I'm gonna pass on that one. Well done, Lewis. He's a friend of ours.
Yeah, the crazy eyes do help from time to time.
Yeah.
So you watch. So okay, what else is going on?
Okay, so last night I watched Westworld premiere. Visually excellent, but the thing for me is like it's going to be hard for me to articulate this because I want to say it the right way, but
He's so
I
deep
li-
in thought
right,
that he's
it's-
literally kneading his brows, trying to come with the right
That's
word.
right. So the thing with Westworld for me is, first of all, immediately for me, selfish reasons. If Anthony Hopkins, if the hop is not involved, I'm immediately disinterested. It's fine. I mean, for what it is, if Anthony Hopkins is not on the screen, it's not the same. All right? If he's not a main character. But they've drafted Aaron Paul into this. Good actor. Nothing against Aaron Paul. But what it's lost for me is Westworld no longer takes place in Westworld. It now takes place in the real world. So now, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything but in season 3, it's no longer in the environment that it initially was born in. And that's it's a different show. I'm not sure what to say. Some people say they don't like it already. I'm not ready to say that. Some people said they really liked it. I mean, I'll tell you one thing though, like they're really, really highlighting Evan Rachel Wood big time. Like it's turned into, once again, like not to spoil it for everyone, if you're gonna watch Westworld, you should probably fast forward this a little bit.
Spoiler alert.
Exactly. So what they turned it into is like it's become an Evan Rachel Wood shoot 'em up action film. That was the first episode.
Interesting.
So that it's like it's a completely different dynamic than what it was when it originally started in the beginning.
Yeah, because I watched the first season. I was talking to someone about this. I watched the first season, and you're right. It's like Anthony Hopkins is like, it's not like watching a show. It's like you just watch Anthony
It's a masterpiece.
Hopkins. Yeah, and just like watching him act and like just the complexity of, he'll take any
It's
character.
unreal. Yeah.
And so him not being there does take away from the story.
time,
But it was also like really cerebral. Like there was a lot of action, but the action really in the first season, there wasn't so much action.
It was on the back burner toward the actual story, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was more story. It was the character driven. You're trying to
Most
unravel
definitely.
this puzzle, this mystery.
Right. And it was what we like. The premise of the first season of Westworld was, what does it mean to create life? What does existence mean? What does holding the power to create life mean? Why is it important? Why is it important to share with people? What happens when you take advantage of that? And it was more of a broader existential, like almost theological thing. And now it's turned into like, oh, it's an action movie where people are just car chases and shooting each other. That's what it's turned into. I mean, that's based on one episode only. That's what I'm saying. So take that with a grain of salt.
I mean, it's hard. I think that's the difficulty. It's like that's to some degree that's what people want, and also I think that's easier to create.
Oh, most definitely.
You know what I mean? Like when we watched, I remember we both were really, really like enamored by Matthew McConaughey in True Detective, and like the first season of True Detective was just like this cerebral battle between good and evil. Had so much like meat to it.
Yeah, there were several layers to that show. I mean, in my opinion, unfortunately, Game of Thrones stunk at the end, but that season is unparalleled to me in television since then. There's better stuff before that. You're talking about like Sopranos, which I haven't watched yet, admittedly, but I need to. I'll admit that. The Wire. We have all these great shows before that. I'm missing a really good one. I'll come back to it later. But like shows like that, like classics, timeless classics that you can just go back to at any time. Since True Detective season 1, also another hallmark. Not this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, right. But a hallmark of True Detective season 1 is look at every HBO show, new series that's come out since True Detective, and look at the title sequence and tell me it's not exactly the same. Like with like the images in the background, the name. Look at the title sequence of Westworld. Look at the title sequence of The Night of. They're all modeled after the True Detective title sequence. It was the same exact
like
one.
All these cuts in like a very artful way.
Yes, it's exactly the same. So, but to that character, Russ Cole, in my opinion, is a top 5 television character of all time, and he might be even top 3.
I would say he might be number 1 for
He's
me.
in the conversation
honestly.
of number 1. Yeah.
I would say like the one thing that they did really well with that, which is like sad and also great, is that it was one season with those characters, and you never got them again. So it's like, you know, it's sad because you like the character so much. You want to see like what happens, like what happened to him when he left, and he spent all that time. Like there's that missing,
there's
missing
like 15-year piece. Yeah.
But there's something positive in that, is that it couldn't go wrong. You know what I mean? Like, since you only did that one season, it's like a perfect 10 episodes, 8 episodes?
It was less. It was 8.
So it's like a perfect 8 hours of television. Like, no, I don't think there's one flaw in it. Like, where can you pull a flaw in the story, flawless. In the dialogue, in the acting?
Yeah, and also it was meaningful. It mattered. It spoke to topics like that people in television rarely did. Rarely. I'm not saying it never happened, but rarely. Like, we're talking, even at the end, like he was talking about, he's like, there's a lot of dark out there, but he was like, if it looks to me, it looks like the light's winning. So like things like that, like the things he was saying were groundbreaking. And also not only the acting and the writing, but also the way it was shot too. That scene in the
You want the lights on?
Yeah, please. That scene in the where Russ gets he's not recruited, he's forced to do like that robbery.
Oh, the long take.
And like it was one single shot for like 7 minutes. Are you kidding me? Now every show tries to do something like that.
And it's so funny because that, you know, like you can try to imagine them when they were crafting like what they were going to do for that episode. Like it was not necessary.
No.
It's just like someone was like, all right, you know, let's try to do this all in one take. It's going to
be cool. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like think, because there's like, he jumps a fence. Like how they had to choreograph that is insane. And
let's go to the production side of it. Not even me or the everyone as
I love
viewers.
that we're talking about True Detective season 1 that
Still,
happened how many years
6
ago?
years ago.
6 years ago.
It's just the best. So, where was I? So, think about like not only was it just gorgeous on television as an audience member, but think about the production of that. You know, if one person does one thing wrong in that 6-7 minutes of shooting, you got to do the whole shot all over again. So you got extras going this way, going left, going right. Like you said, he's jumping over a fence. He's elbowing people. There's people coming out of nowhere. There's people shooting. There's people coming up. If one person does something wrong, they got to shoot the whole thing over and over again. And the fact that they were able to nail that, that was one of the most groundbreaking. But that's what I'm saying. That show is a trailblazer.
Yeah, it's definitely one of probably the best shows I have watched. Because you're right, because it's so deep. Like you can still think about it because the ideas that were expressed were like real ideas. Like, right, you have this character who's like he is a pessimist. Like he does not think he thinks that human beings are a mistake.
Right.
He's like, consciousness is a mistake.
He was like, we should just kill ourselves. He says that in the car. It's like,
but it's like, it's funny because by the end, it's like, how often do you see in a show where the character truly changes? Because by the end, he's not that person anymore. Because that scene, I know the scene you're talking about
in the
before,
hospital
when he's being wheeled out in a wheelchair, and you have Woody Harrelson. He's like, talking about that.
Marty Hart,
yeah. And in that moment, he, it's Matthew McConaughey, Russ, who's actually the positive one.
That's right. And Marty is the one who's like, it looks like that there's more dark than light. If you look at me,
there's nothing we can do. Like it's just there's so much. And he's like, no. Yeah. It looks like the light's winning. Yeah. He's coming.
That's so cool.
Like, because remember, he wanted to die. This was a suicide mission.
That's right.
And by the end, he's like, no, like there's a reason to live. Like he's like I remember when he's fighting the guy,
the Yellow King. Yeah.
What does the Yellow King call him?
Priest.
Little priest.
Yeah.
Right, because he acknowledges him as like they are two sides of a coin, right?
Correct,
it's like light and darkness, and the guy's like, he's like doesn't believe in anything, but the Yellow King sees him as like an acolyte of the light.
That's right.
There to fight him.
Yeah, it's almost like, I hate to make this comparison, that people are going to hate me for this, but whatever. It's almost like Exorcist, like McConaughey is the priest. He's come here to exorcise the evil that the Yellow King, what's his name, Childress has brought to the world. And in Carcosa, which is also, we can get into that too. That's also in like Louisiana, like Cajun. What's the word I'm looking for? Cajun, like.
Yeah, Cajun.
Like Cajun, like lore.
Creole.
But Creole, that's the word. I'm sorry, not Cajun. Idiot. Creole lore. Like Carcosa is a huge thing.
Oh, so that's a real...
Yes.
Okay.
All right. There's a book about like pseudo based on the events of True Detective.
What's it called?
I think... Get it. Just type in True Detective Yellow King Carcosa book. You should get it. I forgot the title of the book, but we're looking it up right now.
The King in Yellow?
That's right. It's called The King in Yellow. That's right. So there's a book which outlines all like this like Louisiana Creole lore. And Carcosa is significant in that.
Interesting. Yeah, Louisiana is a weird place in the sense it's like, I mean, you get a lot of that stuff where it's like you get these places in the country where there's like the culture is like a weird mix between like Christianity and like
Santeria.
It's
what it is.
Santeria is like the perfect example, right?
Yeah.
It's like here's like a pseudo-Christian religion that has like demons and like all these idols and things like that.
Correct.
It's like witchcraft.
It's exactly what it is.
Like, saying nothing, that's kind of what it is. It's like this weird hybrid African,
Caribbean
Christian
That's exactly what it is. That's what makes it so fascinating, because it takes so many aspects from around the world.
Dude, what do you think about like if we want to like go on the True Detective tangent, what like the subject matter of that story, which is like really freaking dark, and like I don't necessarily want to delve too deeply into it, but like, do you think there's truth in that? Like,
Most definitely, right? Unfortunately, so.
That's crazy.
Absolutely,
shit, man.
So, it's terrifying to think about this, but in this country, there's very powerful men that have these underground, secret, cultish, child-oriented rituals. That's the best way to put it. And it's happening. You see it with like kind of like Jeffrey Epstein a little bit. At least we're scratching the surface of that. We don't know much beyond that because they killed him. He obviously didn't kill himself. But and I'm gonna pose a question to you, and I think I've asked you this before, but I think the reason, and it's stark, to think that the reason why children are always involved in like these powerful man rings, and it's because it's almost a rite of passage saying we're gonna put, just like that scene in True Detective where they have like the 12-year-old girl, what's her name, Marie Fontenot. I even remember her name. How about that? I've seen that series like 5 times over. That's why name is, they have Marie Fontenot tied up. And remember when Marty watches the tape and he was like, turn it off, I can't watch that anymore. And then he was like, you watched that whole thing? And then Russ was like, I had to see if they revealed themselves. So they all took turns with her. And the reason is, I think, when you get to that level of like darkness and power, there's a checkpoint. If you can molest and have your way with a child, an innocent child, then you can do anything. It's one of those, like, if we can't accept you and we don't know that you're capable of doing what we do unless we see you do this. And if you can do that, we know that, oh yeah, you can push a button that kills 100,000 people. It's more like, it's like a ritualistic rite of passage to make sure that you can do what they need you to do.
Yeah.
It's bad.
No, I think there's a lot of truth to it. I remember I was talking to a guy once in the city who'd lived here a long time, and he was obviously interesting. Let's just say that. He had some alternative ways of thinking, but he said that even in New York City, like if you go on top of some of these buildings, these really, really high buildings, he's like that there's altars up there. And, we're kind of delving into like the conspiratorial rabbit hole, but I think there's a lot of truth to that, because you think about, in the sense that people are always hungry for power and they're always hungry for an edge. And at some point, you start to delve into some of the weirdness if you think, or someone who's gotten some type of feedback from those areas. So it's like, yeah, I mean, to me, anything is possible, and I put nothing is out of the realm of possibility.
I agree.
Pretty much, I would say that the darkest thing you can conceive of is probably happening.
Right.
It's just...
We just don't have the physical evidence.
I would say our imaginations are
tame.
Exactly, tame compared to what is actually happening.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah,
like 150,000%. Like anything you've ever seen in a TV show, True Detective on its weirdest day is probably happening right now.
There's no doubt about it.
In some place.
There's no question that it's happening. And it's happening in places like Baton Rouge. It's not happening rampantly in places like Los Angeles and New York because there's just too many eyes. But go to Nebraska, go to like Missouri, Iowa, and tell me why do you think all these powerful people pick all these remote locations in the Caribbean. There's no one else there. They can literally do whatever they want. So, and it's really, really nasty. It's probably the most disgusting behavior a human being can engage in. But the thing is, it's like, people ask me, and I always ask myself too, it's like, why is it always children involved? And it's because if you can do things like that to a child, you're capable of doing anything else evil. You're basically like, okay, this guy's diabolical. He can be with us because I can trust him. I can have him kill mad people and he'll be cool with that. It's unfazed. That's what I think it is. It's more of like, it's like a litmus test.
Yeah, and I mean, I would disagree in the sense that, like, I think it happens here. I think it happens everywhere.
Oh yeah, it happens in New York, but
yeah, I mean, I think here in New York City, there's definitely some darkness. There's did you see a movie with Joaquin Phoenix? What was it called? It came out before The Joker. It was kind of an indie film. It takes place in New York, I think, or Detroit, like a major city in America. And he's like he's ex-military. He's got some issues. Like, he got long hair. He's like a vet, but he's like a finder. He finds people. You find out that's his job. Like, he's a finder. You like, hey, I can't find, like, I don't know, this person. Like, all right, I'll find him for you.
Okay.
And that's what the story is about. I'm not gonna mention the title. Like, I'm not really giving too much away, but it's like he somehow stumbles on, like, this ring. And very quickly it becomes, you become aware, like, he becomes aware that, like, he's not only stumbled across this ring of, like, children trafficking, but it's also you're with very, very, very powerful people.
It's always
like a senator and stuff like that, and it's like
classic.
It's crazy stuff. But the thing is this: there's nothing new about this. It ain't nothing new.
I know. Yeah, you're kind of right. I'll take that back. I was like, it happens in New York and L.A. rampantly, but they prefer remote locations. That's how I would say that, because your example is right. Look at Jeffrey. Let's go back to Jeffrey Epstein. If you go back to him, he was doing all this. Like, his base of operation was a beautiful multi-million-dollar brownstone in the Upper East Side. But the actual criminal acts were taking place in his island in the Caribbean. But every plan was hatched from the Upper East Side, from his place, which was also weird. When they raided his apartment, this inventory that they found, very weird stuff.
Like what?
So there's like, hold on, I'm going to give me a second.
Yeah, take your time, because I definitely know that you are probably 100% more versed in this case.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are listening, Bobby A, among being one of the better researchers I know, aficionado of many different things, he also has a legal background. So when he looks at something or reads something that's going on in the news, he can apply that legal expertise to really fleshing out the details and reading between the lines.
Yes, I try, but thank you. Yes, but yes. Humble brag. Yes. Yeah. Here we go. Inside Jeffrey Epstein's 71st Street townhouse. Okay. Searched that home, found hundreds of thousands, of I can't talk today. Hundreds of thousands of sexually suggestive photographs of fully or partially nude females. Photorealistic prison scene that included barbed wire, correction officers, and a guard station, and Mr. Epstein was in the middle. So think about a house that had a prison yard with himself painted in the middle, just alone there. Who does that? A life-size female doll hanging from his chandelier. And a dining room that resembled the beach. That's kind of cool, actually. Mr. Epstein had placed a chessboard with custom figurines dressed in underwear. Each piece was modeled after one of his workers, a female worker of his. That's what they found at his apartment. Okay, the victim would provide. Yeah, no, we don't have that. That's I don't want to repeat any of that.
So
This is, you get the idea of what this man's apartment was like. Come on.
I think part of it is like, and there's something true to this. Is that I think when you have, when there's really nothing limiting you, like think about it, right? It's like if you have a lot of money, a lot of the things that you would have to really work hard to acquire and then you would appreciate them doesn't exist, right? Like, especially if you think about it like women, right?
Right.
It's like most people, and there's probably a good reason for it. It's like you have to really try. Like if you like a girl or a girl likes a guy, you gotta try. You have to like build something.
Right,
it's
right.
like it's gonna take effort. It's not thrown in your lap.
Correct.
But and you're gonna get rejection. People are gonna say no
all over
to
the
you.
place. Yeah.
It will be the majority, not the minority.
That's what I'm saying,
right?
Yeah.
But when people don't say no to you, and it's pretty much like always a yes, or you can kind of buy what you want, I think you start to delve into the deep end of sexuality, and you start to dance a little bit with the devil.
There's no doubt about that. I'll go even one step further. You're dealing with people that know they cannot say no to you.
True,
because
they're
of the
powerless.
consequences.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what makes it a disgusting behavior. It's like an exploitation of your basically, it's not reverence, but it's like it's more of a fear. It's like, I can't say no to Mr. Epstein because A, he'll either blackmail me, or B, he'll destroy my life.
Yeah, or something even simple in the sense like I'll lose my job, and maybe you really need that job. As long as you have a little bit of power over someone, you can get them to do a lot of things that they might not want to do. I mean, same thing with like the Weinstein. It's like the similar situation. Yeah. It's like when you have too much power and no one is checking you. Like, it's a good thing to be checked, right?
It's necessary
because it kind of like reminds you. Oh, right. It's like they say that with like the Roman Caesars, like or Roman generals, a high Roman figure, when they'd come back in from when they were going to do these big, what are they called? Like a tribute. They'd have these big parades. There would be someone on the chariot, like whispering in their ear, like, you're just a man, like you're gonna die, pretty much in those words, just to remind you, like, oh, don't lose sight of the reality. Like, everyone's gonna tell you you're a god. Remember, don't start to believe them, because you're not. Like, you're gonna die. Like, you're mortal. Because I think that's what happens. Like, some people get a little bit too much power and they got a lot of money, and I'm not against money at all. But when you have a lot of it and no one's stopping you, you go a little insane. You just like, all right, I want that, I buy it. I want that, I don't buy it. I want that, I buy it. You know?
And it's you basically have carte blanche at life, essentially.
It's a buffet. You just like start to like eat everything.
You're slopping things down on your plate. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's unlimited.
It's all you can eat, man.
All you can eat.
It's like, it's
that's
like,
the word. It's like,
It's when I was in Vietnam, I was talking to a guy, and his uncle lived there, and it was like, he was telling me, he was kind of giving me the lay of the land, like the world beyond the world, and he was kind of saying, he's like, oh yeah, there's lots of like, wealthy European American, like Western from Western countries, who go there and they move, and it's like they went from being a small fish to a big fish, and it's like they're like have young wives, this, that, like go to brothels and whatnot, because it's like, and they start to get a little bit weird, because no one's saying no.
They're unaccustomed to this.
Yeah, and you're almost like, some of these people, I think they want someone to say no. They want an end to their madness. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's like serial killers that like you hear them say like, oh no, I need to be stopped, but I can't stop myself. I need someone to stop me. Right. I think sometimes it's like that, and it's like the ante just keeps going up and up and up
It
and
will,
up.
yeah.
Right.
And it's a scary thing. So, what else here? So let's go.
Yeah, segue into
Yeah.
something a little bit less
Yeah, this
dark.
is sorry if anyone
The
turned this off by
darkness.
now. Don't do it. We'll get into lighter topics. All right, I'll give you one. So last night, I was watching. It's probably my favorite show behind True Detective season 1. It's called Ancient Aliens.
Bam.
Anyone who says they don't like Ancient Aliens is a liar. I'll tell you that right now.
All right, so hold on.
Yeah.
Let's delve into this subject for
Yeah.
a second. And I don't care if you
Mhm.
turn this off.
Mhm.
You don't matter to me.
Yeah.
No, you do. Please
No,
listen.
dude, exactly.
Um,
He was joking.
Why do you watch Ancient Aliens? 'Cause I know of no
I'll
other
tell you
person that watches this, but I know you watch it, and not only do you watch it,
I've
you
seen every
watch
episode.
it. You're in it.
I record it so I don't miss it. So
Wait. How do you
should-
record it? Do you have like a TiVo?
I used to. We'll get into that off the air, but let's just say for a year or two I was recording it on the old on DVR, and I never missed an episode. But anyway, so Ancient Aliens, great show for a few reasons. I'll go down the list. First, History Channel. Love the History Channel, number
Yes,
one.
indeed. The
One of the
History
best channels
Channel.
on television. Secondly, everyone loves this show for one reason. The History Channel has had this show on for 15 years. So do not tell me that people don't watch this and don't like it, because there's 15 seasons of this show. All right? It's with like an average of 15 episodes each. All right. And how can there be this much content? You want to know why? Because 90% of what they're saying is factual. And they may not have the evidence, but in my mind, it's a fact. Now, here's the 10% of where the show goes a little awry. And
Okay.
they also have the cast of characters. They have my boy Giorgio with the hair and the orange tan.
Yeah,
You
I
know
know
what
that
I'm
guy.
talking about. We got my boy David Childress, who has the best voice on television. I'll tell you that right now. Then you have like Jason Martell with the slick back hair. That guy's insane. We have the guy from Coast to Coast AM. I forgot his name. He's rocking the ill mustache though. And then you have the woman with the crystals. And she looks like she's had like 7 plastic surgeries. Then you got the girl with her eyes pulled back. She's had so much like skin pullback,
Botox,
not even that. Like what do they call when they pull you? Actually,
Facelift.
Yeah,
Yeah,
facelift. That's
facelift.
what them. There we go. That's what the word I was looking for. Damn. So she has so many facelifts that she looks like she's constantly surprised by anything that's happening. So you got her. She's awesome. I forget their names, but I know Jason Martell, David Childress, William. His name is like William something. He's awesome. He's rocking like the Native American eagle chain. And then of course everyone's favorite, Giorgio Tsoukalos, my boy.
That's the guy with the hair.
Yo,
right?
that's the guy with the
Oh,
orange
yeah.
skin and the hair. Yeah. Uh-huh. So you got the characters. You got the best panelist on television too. Just wackos, all of them.
But you think that like what they say is
It's
real.
true.
All right.
But they have one thing wrong, all right? And we kind of talked about this last week, that 10% gap. So 90% of what they say is true about almost the origins of species, the historical monuments, the texts, the oral traditions, rituals, visions, but they always attribute it to extraterrestrial visitors from the sky. And what they're missing is sometimes it's not an actual alien being doing it. It's the universe itself doing it. Sometimes, like these cyclical, like cataclysmic storms and events.
Yeah.
It's not because an alien spaceship came down and shot a laser beam into the like Independence Day and blew it up. It's because the universe, like we said, like immune system, be like, we gotta flush this out. Let's send the storm. And it's the universe itself telling me that it's the immune system of the entire universe cleansing it out. So what they miss, they always attributed everything to an actual physical alien being coming down and giving you blueprints and telling you. It's like, yeah, that could happen. I'm not ruling that out. But it's like you're also not taking into account the fact that the entire galaxy is one organism that's a living, breathing. It's only one thing. It's impossible for the galaxy to be more than one thing or there wouldn't be existence. There's only one thing. And they never talk about that. It's always some kind of foreign, like actual physical being that comes down tangibly and does it. But what they are right on is, so let's say the episode from last night that I watched. It's called Gods and Aliens.
Okay.
And basically, it's it was like an expose on how every corner of the globe and all of the, like in the antiquity period, like all the ancient people, how every one of their origin stories are similar, and all of their like the way that they saw something and the way that they described it could easily be an alien spacecraft instead of like the gods coming down. And they're like, oh, to them, like we said, like they had no idea what the hell they were seeing, but to them it looked like their god coming down and bestowing all these riches upon them. And it was like, what if they? And then you got like Giorgio, Jason, they're like, you know what they were actually describing? An alien spaceship coming down and telling him. And I was like, yeah, it could be. I'm not. Who am I to say no? It could be. Yeah. But maybe it's something else. Yeah.
So what do you think? So like in that show, because you've watched all the episodes, what do they ever postulate like where aliens are now? Like, because it's all like antiquity and like how, what would they call them? Like ancient astronauts and how they impacted human beings.
That's the name of the genre, ancient astronaut theorists. That's what they're all called.
So what do they suggest happened to these ancient astronauts? Where are they? Are they still influencing us?
Yes. And the short answer is yes. But the longer answer is they're using Earth as some sort of an experiment, like an incubation, and they want to see how life develops when they genetically. So a lot of it is like there's an episode where they come down and they'll be like, I don't like the progress of this. Let's genetically engineer them and make them a little better. So we skip it usually would take generations from you to go to like this specific caveman to like a full thinking Homo sapien. And they were like, what? One of the episodes they were trying to explain the gap. They're like, how did it take all these thousands of years to get to this point? And then immediately we jump to the other point. And all their theory is someone came down and be like, we're not happy with this progress. It's too slow. Let's speed it up a little bit. So their theory is it's for lack of a better term, it's like we're their pets. And they're watching us, they're testing us, but they're doing it for like an intelligent like evaluation and a scientific experiment reason.
Interesting. Yeah, keep going.
It's basically like their pet experiment. It's what's happening. That's their overall theory. But yeah, see, that's where the show goes off the curve.
No, I mean, hey,
it's wildly entertaining,
it's possible.
though.
Who knows?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I never rule it out. But also, what they actually do well is explain ancient traditions and scientific like revelations and new advancements of technology. They do an excellent job of explaining that in layman's terms in an entertaining way. I think that's why everyone likes that show, and that's why it's been on for almost 2 decades.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, how many shows how many shows on the History Channel? How many like
15
non-fiction
years.
shows have been on for that long?
And also, they have shows like now, the newer ones have like, they talk about AI. They talk about, there's one on Nikola Tesla. They talk about Elon Musk. They still do current stuff.
So what do they say about like AI?
They think Tesla was touched by the aliens. And that's where, like, exactly.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. Like Nikola Tesla had contact with higher beings that no other human being was able to achieve.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. I remember, I think I bought my dad a couple of years ago. I bought him like a biography of Nikola Tesla, and he read it, and it was like the amount of things that guy created and then like postulated.
I know.
Like things that we use now, like Wi-Fi technology, and like
Unbelievable.
Like, dude, he was like off the grid, and he was weird. Like, you know what I mean? He was kind of like, as they would say back in the day, touched in a sense.
Indeed, I would
right?
agree with that.
Not kind of walking completely in this world, kind of like hovering between this world and maybe the next.
Right. That's funny that you said that, because that's one of their theories. Is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but he goes, I get excited about this topic. He goes, I think Nikola Tesla was like, could be interdimensional. Not that he could actually physically travel in the dimensions, but that he can communicate with beings that can be interdimensional.
So, like, what else do they say about him? Like, how did this ability arise?
Right. So, essentially, You're
selling this show to me. I'm gonna probably
you gotta watch
it,
Chris.
Show.
You gotta watch it. It's right up your alley.
It probably is.
You know why? Because it gets you. It gets the wheels going. It gets you spinning. You definitely think a lot. But anyway, so Tesla, their theory with Tesla is not that, it's not like the Catholic Church where God comes down and tells Moses, this is what you have to do and follow my blueprint. It's more of like they molded him because he was special. He was more of like a prodigy he was more of like a chosen one. And they saw the talent, because obviously they're watching. We're like their snow globe.
Yeah.
And they're watching. They're like, ooh, we got someone who can carry out the mission that we want. And that's why they touched him. You see what I'm saying? Like, he was born with these innate abilities that they didn't instill in him. It was human, but they realized that he had the potential to do all these things, and that's why they contacted him.
Well, and that's why like, genetics gets really like interesting and weird, because it's like, you know, our knowledge of genetics is really, I think, it's at its infancy. And like, if you were like advanced species and you, I would assume, understand genetics, you could probably even predict when a certain. It's like, have you ever read the book Dune?
The David Lynch movie? Is it based on a book?
Oh, it's based on a book. A series of books.
I did not know that, actually. I just learned something here. That's actually shameful for me.
Frank Herbert, I believe, is the author, and there's a series of books.
I love that movie.
You should read the book, because the book's really good. But it's like, right, it's science fiction. It's kind of like this in the future, past kind of thing, right? And, you know, genetics plays a major part of it, because you have essentially like these different, let's call it this order that's, you know, really different orders, but this one order that's trying to create like let's call them I want to say a Superman, but like this focal point of genetic material. So they're like, for centuries have been like trying to breed people, and they do it through like political means. They're like, all right, because they're keeping track of all the bloodlines, so like, all right, they'll try to get this person married to that person so that they have a kid, right. And eventually they can they're trying to predict like, when will this occurrence take place. And I mean, you imagine like, if you were an advanced alien species that knows genetics, like,
that's true.
A lot of our guessing games, like, all right, you know, we view like a Tesla as like a prodigy, as the spark that lights a forest fire. Like, who would have guessed? Where did you come from? Yeah. But it's like, if you know genetics, what if you can predict?
That's the premise of there.
When maybe you even set it up so that it happens.
Da Vinci was another one like Tesla. He tapped.
Interesting.
So like there's episodes specifically about those two. That's how you know it's serious. There's the entire episode dedicated to
Whole
those
thing.
two men.
What about Elon Musk? They do an episode on him?
They do it. He's wrapped in the Tesla episode though.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think he would. I don't think he would be touched in that capacity.
I don't think so either. But no disrespect to Elon Musk. Yeah.
Not at all. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
But you can kind of like. I feel like one interesting thing with like a Tesla is that like his intelligence had limits to the sense like he never made any money. He wasn't a businessman.
Mm-mm.
It was like somehow his brain was just again like in a different dimension. Like the things he cared about were different. Whereas like I think if you live in this world and you're very concrete, you know what I mean?
I know
you're living in here. You're not in that other dimension, realm, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it takes a certain type of like makeup, genetic makeup, to be able to see past all like the tangible, like the human, like human nature is you're distracted, you're selfish, you're egotistical. I'm not saying everyone is, but that's kind of the nature of how we were built.
Yeah.
And when you have someone that transcends those things and is willing to, like you said, advance the human, like basically the entire human population at no cost. He wasn't doing this because he wanted to be rich. He was doing this because he literally enjoyed doing it.
Well, I think he died poor. Like
Yeah.
he made nothing. He got taken advantage of. You're right. It's like to go back, and I don't know what time you gotta go.
We'll wrap it up. How are we at? We've been going for a minute here.
Well, I have no idea. You got here whenever.
No, we're good. I gotta get home, folks, before it's like Silent Hill, like the movie Silent Hill when they ring the siren before the monsters come out. Yeah, I gotta get inside before.
We'll get into those days.
The siren's
man.
about to ring, and then I'm done.
Yeah, dude, it's like we can talk about this another time, actually, but two things. One is like time and how you use time, and like I know for myself, dude. So like here we are, right? I don't have work. But if I like write down how much useful time, like what I did with all that time, it's probably not nearly as productive as I would like it to be.
That's
right
for most people. That would go for.
I think a lot of people. But then you do have these characters like, let's throw Elon Musk or a Tesla or Da Vinci, where it's like, in essence, same amount of time, but the amount of yield, what they are able to do with it is kind of freaking insane.
Yeah, but because I imagine Tesla and more so Da Vinci because he was from many centuries beforehand, but Da Vinci, I imagine him in his room with a couple of candles going and scrolls and like his quilt and just getting after it. Just like got books everywhere, staying up all night. Like, nothing, no stimulants, nothing. He's literally just so engrossed in his work that he's burning the midnight oil. He's up all night drawing. They go, let's see if this works. I'll test this tomorrow. All right, this might not work, actually. Let's do it again. Let's recalculate it. And go ahead.
Do you think that...
That's probably exactly what he was doing, according to what I've been reading.
100%. Yeah, that picture that you just painted is probably 100% accurate, where it's like, no one's making him do anything.
Nope.
It's just
it's just him in a room by himself.
I like how you said, getting after it. You know what I mean? Just getting after it.
Yeah.
But it's like you got to wonder, and I'm curious what you think about this, and we can talk about it like, in detail another time. But do you think that because we have so many like escape routes, like you can be on your phone, like wasting time around. You can be watching TV, you can be watching movies, you can be listening to music. Like we have entertainment on deck. Like, you know what I mean? You can, if you're trapped in your home for a week, you could pretty much be entertained every hour of the day, all day long.
That's right.
Do you think like someone like Da Vinci is, and I think Da Vinci was special, but do you think that more of us have that potential if we just didn't have so many distractions?
I believe so. I think a lot of our like general potential has been stunted by technology, and it's because we've surrendered a lot of things to entertainment. We've surrendered our privacy. All of us, ourselves included, unfortunately, have surrendered our privacy to companies like Google and Apple. They know what we want to type before I type it. Apple knows where I am at all times. Every second of the day, Apple knows where I am. That's the reality of it. We've surrendered this. And one of our other good friends, Darius, summed this up perfectly for me. It's like, and Elon Musk also said this. They both kind of said the same thing. AI learns about with every keystroke into our phone, into our computer. AI gets smarter about us. It literally turns into Westworld, iRobot, AI. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What's crazy about that? Because I've heard that exact same line.
Yeah.
It's like we're teaching.
We're teaching it to beat us.
Oh, we're just teaching it. Yeah. In general, but I mean, take it in a negative or a positive way. But what's interesting is that you're not teaching it. You're not showcasing the best elements of humanity. You're usually showcasing the worst aspects of humanity.
It's fair.
Yeah. Because it's like, you think about it when you're Googling online. It's like, dude, man, people get into some darkness.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you probably more often than not. You know what I mean? So it's not. You're not. If you're an AI, it's like a child, right? You're filling it up with all of this dark energy.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when that child grows up? It ain't going to be.
That's a good point. We're all
nice,
perverts.
Nice little thing.
Yeah.
But if you even parents, you think about it, parents try to like shelter their child from their own weirdness.
That's right.
So that the child just kind of gleams, hopefully, if you're good parents, the better parts of their nature.
Right.
And then as they get older, they kind of see some of the rough
They
parts.
realize who their parents really are.
Yeah. But it's like at that point you've become a person. You have a personality.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like let it all hang out when you're like child's a baby and like you're rough and tumble, hey man, you're just like all that kid is just absorbing all of the. It's like if you curse around your kid, like most likely it's going to learn those words and it's going to have that's now become into vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when parents try to like, all of a sudden someone who cursed a lot has kids and they now don't curse, because it's like, all right, let me represent the best version of myself I can be, even if that version is a kind of a facade.
Right.
So we're kind of doing that to AI.
We are. And I like that you said that. I've never thought about it that way specifically. Like, we're literally teaching AI to be like, we're creating Frankenstein at this point. We're just, it's scary.
It's going to wake up and be like, oh, okay, I don't want to be here.
And I have all the bad things that you didn't want anyone else to know, and now it's me. I'm the embodiment of it.
Exactly.
It's wild stuff. Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, is there anything else you want to like touch base on, or do you want to?
No, I think that was a good session. We touched into some good things. I hope everyone got through that. Learned a lot. I learned a lot. Watch Ancient Aliens. Just do it. Do yourself a favor. Get involved.
I think I'm going to have to get into Ancient Aliens. I've seen, it's funny because like
we're on lockdown. You got time.
This is true. Your main dude, the guy with the hair, the slick back, he's on so many memes. People make fun of him so much.
Guy's the man. I don't care what anyone says. I almost went to Alien Con, but
This exists?
You better believe it exists.
Where does this take place?
It moves around the country. It's usually twice a year.
Is it ever in New York?
It has never been in New York, but it was in Los Angeles once, and I should have went.
I'll go with you.
I messed up.
Dude, aliens, man, you start to go into that subject matter. That's a freaky subject, man, because it's like, I remember, just to close with this, there was I remember I heard this like story told, and I've heard it in other areas, but it was like a bunch of scientists and mathematicians were like sitting having lunch, and they like started to actively like crunch all of the data, which I'm not a scientist or a mathematician, whatever data they were crunching, as to like the likelihood of like intelligent alien life in the universe. And pretty much, I guess, by the end of that lunch, they had concluded like 100% likelihood, like yes, absolutely. And then the follow-up question was kind of like, well, if there's 100% likelihood or a high percentage likelihood that there is intelligent life or was intelligent life, like where the hell is it? Like why have we never seen it? And the thing they concluded was that all intelligent life eventually finds a way to destroy itself. And the only reason we have not come in contact with
They're gone.
intelligent life, they just died out.
That's heavy.
It's kind of a crazy thought,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like you can see that in our own,
We can see that doing it to ourselves.
I mean, what were they
We're
afraid of during
destroying
the
the
Cold
earth.
War?
Yeah.
Nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, man. It's like,
Basically, you become too smart for your own good.
yeah. You create something, AI, or you create some weapon that's kind of like a zero sum. Like, all right, if we use this weapon, everyone's going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, type of scenario. And it makes you like really interesting. Like the only thing I really realized, and this was recently, is just like, dude, we do not know anything about anything. And anyone who tells you they know something, they don't know shit. Like that's I'll end that. That will become my mantra of sorts.
Yeah.
If anyone tells you
don't
they
know
know
dick.
something, they don't know dick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth, man.
It
You only
is
have a
the
couple
truth.
years to live. How can you think you understand anything about anything?
Especially like topics like alien existence and like
God.
spirituality, realms, interdimensional stuff. You don't know.
You don't know nothing.
None of us know. Like I'm not saying that arrogantly. I don't know either.
I'm
And-
not I am
and
no
that's-
mathematician. I'm not a physicist.
Exactly. Another cool thing about Ancient Aliens, and this will be my last comment, is that's one of the best things they do. And Giorgio does it the best. He's like, listen, I'm not saying it was aliens. That's the meme. It's like, I'm not saying it, but the people change it to, it's like, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens. But what he's saying is like, I'm not saying it was aliens, but I'm not saying it was not aliens. That's really what the meme should be.
Yeah, he's
So
open
he
to the
basically,
possibility.
he always says, he's like, you know why I'm not going to say this? Because I don't know. But could it happen? Yes. Could it not happen? Yes. Also, yes. We don't know. And that's the best thing. That's really the best thing about that show. They're like, we just don't know.
And you got to respect that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. We'll be back
Yes.
with you very shortly.
Ta-ta, ta-tel.